The ancient halls of the Galactic Council echoed with whispers that had traveled through space for centuries. Never underestimate humanity, the old warning went, carved into crystalline walls by civilizations that learned this truth too late. But on this day, as purple suns cast long shadows across the council chambers, one being dared to laugh at those words. Chancellor Korth of the Dominion Empire stood tall among the gathered representatives, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming with arrogance. His 4 arms gestured dismissively as holographic displays showed human colonies scattered across the outer rim. These soft creatures, he sneered, his voice like grinding gears. They barely survived their own planet's wars. How can they threaten an empire that spans 1,000 worlds? The council chamber fell silent. Elder beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of galaxies shifted uncomfortably in their floating platforms. They remembered the last time someone had spoken such words. The Vorthan supremacy had said the same thing before they mysteriously vanished from all records, leaving only empty systems and the haunting message. The humans, they're not what we thought. Captain Jackson Rivera felt the weight of every alien gaze as he stepped forward to address the council. His human features stood out starkly among the diverse array of beings, some crystalline, others gaseous, many defying description altogether. At 32, Jackson had already earned respect across the galaxy as both a skilled diplomat and a fearless explorer. His dark hair was slightly tousled from the long journey, and his green eyes held a warmth that seemed to put even the most hostile aliens at ease. "Honorable council members," Jackson began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Humanity seeks only peace and cooperation. We've shared our medical advances, our art, our music. We've helped rebuild worlds torn by war and welcomed refugees from across the stars." Chancellor Korth's laugh was like metal scraping against stone. "Pretty words from a pretty species," he mocked, his cold eyes scanning Jackson from head to toe. "But what happens when your soft hearts face real power? When your peaceful ways meet the fury of the Dominion fleet?" It was then that she stepped forward, and Jackson's breath caught in his throat. Zephyr Nightwhisper moved with a grace that seemed to bend the very air around her. Her skin held the soft luminescence of starlight, shifting between pale silver and gentle gold as her emotions flickered beneath the surface. Her hair flowed like liquid midnight, and her eyes were the deep purple of nebulae where new stars were born. She was the ambassador from the Stellarist Federation, a race known for their mystical beauty and ancient wisdom. Chancellor Korth speaks of power. Zephyr's voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, yet it carried across the vast chamber with crystalline clarity. But true strength cannot be measured in the size of one's fleet or the sharpness of one's weapons. Her gaze met Jackson's for just a moment, and he felt something electric pass between them. "I have studied human history, their literature, their capacity for both creation and protection." The way she said that last word sent shivers through the assembled delegates. There was something in her tone, a warning wrapped in silk. But Korth was beyond reason, drunk on his own power and the promises of easy conquest. "Enough philosophy," he roared, his exoskeleton expanding to its full, intimidating height. "The Dominion has decided. We will test these humans. Their outer colonies will learn what it means to face true imperial might." The council erupted in concerned murmurs, but Korth had already begun striding toward the exit, his entourage of armored warriors following like dark shadows. As he passed Jackson, he leaned down, his breath hot and metallic. "I'll start with your precious research stations, human. Let's see how your people scream among the stars." As the session disbanded in chaos, Jackson found himself alone on one of the council's observation decks, staring out at the swirling galaxy beyond. The weight of impending war pressed down on him like a physical force. Billions of innocent lives, hung in the balance, and he felt powerless to stop what was coming. "You carry the weight of worlds in your eyes," came a soft voice behind him. Jackson turned to find Zephora approaching, her form seeming to shimmer in the dim light of distant stars. Up close, she was even more breathtaking, and Jackson found himself struggling to maintain his diplomatic composure. "Ambassador Nightwhisper," he said, inclining his head respectfully, "I fear your warnings fell on deaf ears today." She moved to stand beside him at the viewing window, close enough that he could smell her unique scent, like rain on alien flowers and the ozone of lightning. "Call me Zephora," she said softly. Then her expression grew serious. "Jackson Rivera, there are things the Council does not know. Things about your species that even my people are only beginning to understand." He turned to face her fully, drawn by the urgency in her voice. "What do you mean?" Zephora's eyes seemed to glow brighter as she spoke. "We have been watching humanity for longer than your records show. Your species possesses something rare in this galaxy, a combination of fierce loyalty, innovative thinking, and a capacity for both incredible gentleness and terrifying fury when those you love are threatened." The way she said, "those you love," made Jackson's heart race. There was something in her gaze, a depth of feeling that spoke of more than mere diplomatic interest. "Korth believes he understands warfare," she continued, stepping closer. "He sees only your small fleet numbers, your preference for peaceful solutions. He doesn't understand that humans don't just fight with ships and weapons. You fight with your hearts, your minds, your unbreakable bonds to each other." Jackson felt drawn to her like a moth to flame. "Zephora, why are you telling me this? Your Federation maintains strict neutrality." She reached out then, her fingers barely brushing his hand, and the touch sent electricity racing through his entire body. Her skin was warm and incredibly soft, with a slight luminescence that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "Because," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "I have seen what happens when someone underestimates humanity. And because ... She paused, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made the stars themselves seem dim. "Because I fear I am beginning to care far too much about happens to at least one human in particular." The admission hung in the air between them, like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Jackson felt his carefully maintained diplomatic reserve crumbling as he looked into her luminous eyes. The attraction was undeniable, electric, dangerous in all the best ways. "Zephora," he breathed, reaching up to cup her face gently in his hands. Her skin was like silk and starlight combined. "I've traveled to hundreds of worlds, met thousands of beings, but I've never felt anything like what I feel when I look at you." She leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment. "This is forbiddance," she whispered, but made no move to pull away. "My people, your people, the complications it would cause." "Some things are worth the risk," Jackson said softly, drawing closer until their foreheads almost touched. "Besides, if Korth gets his way, we might not have much time to worry about complications." The sobering thought brought them both back to reality. Zephora stepped back reluctantly, though her hand lingered in his for a moment longer than necessary. "I must go," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But Jackson, please, warn your people. Tell them to prepare not just for war, but for something beyond Korth's understanding. Your species has dormant strengths that even you don't fully comprehend." As she began to turn away, Jackson caught her hand. "Will I see you again?" She smiled. Then, an expression so beautiful it made his chest tight. "In this galaxy, Captain Rivera, I think our paths are destined to cross again. Whether in peace or in the fires of war, we will meet again." And with that promise hanging in the star-filled darkness, she disappeared into the corridors of the Council Station, leaving Jackson alone with his racing heart and the terrible knowledge that war was coming. But for the first time since entering, The council chambers, he didn't feel afraid. Zephyra was right. Humanity had hidden depths, and he was beginning to suspect that love might be their most powerful weapon of all. Little did Korth know, he had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. The humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were something far more dangerous. They were a people capable of love, so fierce it could reshape the very fabric of space itself. 3 days after the council meeting, the first Dominion ships appeared on the edge of human space like harbingers of death. The research station Prometheus, home to 5,000 scientists and their families, never stood a chance. Korth's forces struck without warning, their dark vessels emerging from hyperspace with weapons already charging. Lieutenant Damon Cross gripped the controls of his fighter craft, the Stellar Hawk, as he watched the attack unfold on his tactical display. His jaw clenched with barely contained fury as emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. Families were crying for help, children's voices mixing with the static of dying transmissions. "This is Admiral Cassandra Storm to all human vessels," came the steely voice over the fleet-wide channel. "The Dominion has chosen war. They will learn why the galaxy whispers our name in the dark." Damon had served under Admiral Storm for 3 years, and he had never heard that particular tone in her voice before. It was cold, calculated, and absolutely terrifying. Around him, the human fleet began to move with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. But it wasn't just humans preparing for battle. As Damon's squadron approached the combat zone, his sensors picked up something unexpected: alien ships moving in formation alongside the human fleet. Ships with sleek, organic curves that seemed to pulse with inner light. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," came the standard challenge from Fleet Command. The response that came back made Damon's breath catch in his throat. The voice was feminine, musical, and absolutely deadly in its determination. "This is Princess Seraphina Starfall of the Luminary Warrior caste. We stand with humanity against the Dominion's aggression. Our honor demands it." On Damon's view screen, the lead Luminary ship came into view, and he felt his world shift. The vessel was a thing of beauty, its hull seeming to be grown rather than built, covered in patterns that pulsed with soft golden light. But it was the figure standing on the bridge that truly captured his attention. Princess Seraphina Starfall was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin held the warm glow of sunset, shifting from gold to amber as her emotions played across her features. Her hair was like liquid fire, flowing in weightless waves around her shoulders, and her eyes burned with the intensity of twin stars. She wore armor that seemed to be made of crystallized light itself, form-fitting and elegant, yet clearly functional. When their eyes met across the communication link, Damon felt something electric pass between them. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something more: a fierce intelligence, a warrior's pride, and underneath it all, a warmth that called to something deep in his soul. "Human pilot," Seraphan's voice came through his personal communication channel, rich and melodious. "You fly with the grace of a star dancer. What is your name?" "Lieutenant Damon Cross," he managed, trying to keep his voice steady. "And you fight with the beauty of a warrior goddess." Even across the vast distance of space, he could see her smile, and it was like watching a new sun be born. But there was no time for further conversation. The Dominion fleet had detected their approach and was turning to engage. Korth's massive dreadnought, the Iron Tyrant, dominated the center of their formation like a metallic beast of prey. "All units, this is Admiral Storm," came the command. "Show them what happens when you threaten human families." The battle that followed would be remembered in galactic history for centuries to come. Human ships moved with a fluid coordination that defied conventional military doctrine. They fought not just as individual units, but as a single organism driven by shared purpose and unbreakable bonds. Damon found himself flying wing to wing with Seraphine's fighter, a gorgeous craft that seemed to dance through space rather than merely fly. Together, they carved through the Dominion formations like twin flames, their movements so synchronized it was as if they shared a single mind. "Behind you, beautiful," Damon called out as enemy fighters moved to intercept Seraphine's attack run. "I see them, handsome human," she replied, her ship spinning in an impossible maneuver that brought her weapons to bear on her pursuers. "Care to dance?" What followed was aerial ballet written in laser fire and stardust. Damon and Seraphina moved together with an intimacy that transcended their brief acquaintance, each anticipating the other's moves, covering weaknesses, amplifying strengths. When Damon's ship took a hit that knocked out his shields, Seraphina was there instantly, her vessel's energy field extending to protect him. When her weapons overheated from continuous fire, his missiles cleared her path. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, another drama was unfolding. Captain Jackson Rivera had insisted on joining the battle. Despite Admiral Storm's protests, the diplomats belonged safely behind the lines. His ship, the Harmony, was a converted diplomatic vessel, but it carried precious cargo, Zephyra Nightwisper, who had defied her government's neutrality to stand with the humans. "This is madness," Zephyra said, her luminous skin flickering with anxiety as explosions bloomed around their ship. "I should be on a safe station, not in the middle of a battle." Jackson's hands moved skillfully over the controls, piloting their ship through the chaos with a grace that surprised even him. "Some things are worth the risk," he said, echoing his words from their first meeting. "Besides, we couldn't let you miss the show." As if summoned by his words, the space around them erupted in brilliant light. Human ships were doing something the Dominion had never seen before. They were fighting as families. Married couples piloted two-person fighters with a coordination that bordered on telepathic. Brothers and sisters in separate ships moved as one unit. Parents fighting to protect their children on distant colonies fought with a fury that made their weapons sing. "Impossible," came Korth's voice over the captured Dominion communication channels. "How are they coordinating like this? Our tactical computers can't predict their movements." Admiral Storm's response was broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying a mixture of pride and deadly promise. "You wanted to test humanity, Korth. You're learning our first lesson. We don't just fight for territory or resources. We fight for each other." In the heart of the battle, Dr. Phoenix Vale worked frantically in the mobile laboratory ship Eureka. The brilliant scientist had been developing new defensive technologies, but the current crisis demanded something more immediate. His fingers flew over holographic interfaces as he designed modifications that could be transmitted to the fleet in real time. "Admiral," he called over the communication link, "I'm uploading new targeting algorithms to all human ships. There, based on emotional resonance patterns, the stronger the bond between crew members, the more accurate their weapons become." It was science that sounded like magic, but the results were undeniable. Human accuracy rates soared as the fleet's weapons began firing with supernatural precision. Ships crewed by longtime partners found their shots curving around friendly vessels to strike distant targets. Fighter squadrons led by pilots with deep emotional connections moved like schools of fish, impossible to predict or counter. Seraphina watched this display of human unity with growing amazement. "Damon," she breathed over their private channel, "your species is incredible. I have never seen anything like this coordination." "It's not coordination," Damon replied, his voice thick with emotion as he watched a badly damaged human cruiser sacrifice itself to save a transport full of refugees. "It's love. Pure, simple love." Something in his tone made Seraphine's heart race. As their ships danced together through another formation of enemy fighters, she found herself seeing Damon not just as a skilled pilot, but as something far more dangerous, a man she was rapidly falling for. Love, she repeated softly, the word feeling strange and wonderful on her tongue. Is that what I'm feeling when I fly beside you? Damon's ship rolled gracefully to avoid enemy fire, the move bringing him close enough to Seraphine's fighter that they could see each other through their cockpit windows. When their eyes met, the universe seemed to pause. I don't know, he said honestly, but I know I've never felt anything like what I feel when I look at you. And I know I'd fight 1,000 Dominion fleets to keep you safe. Seraphine's response was cut off as alarms suddenly blared across the fleet communication networks. Korth's dreadnought was powering up a weapon that made the space around it ripple with deadly energy. Planet Killer. Admiral Storm's voice was grim. He's targeting the civilian colonies. All ships. We need to stop that weapon from firing. But they were too far away, and the Dominion fleet was screening their dreadnought with everything they had. It looked hopeless until Captain Rivera's voice cut through the despair. Admiral, Zephyra has an idea. It's crazy, but it might work. On the bridge of the Harmony, Zephyra stood with her hands pressed against a crystalline console that seemed to grow from the ship's walls. Her skin blazed with silver light as she reached out with abilities her people rarely shared with outsiders. I can link with the emotional resonance of your fleet, she said, her voice strained with the effort. Amplify the bonds between your people. But I need an anchor, someone whose connection to humanity is strong enough to channel through. Jackson didn't hesitate. He moved to stand behind her, his hands covering hers on the console. The moment they touched, light exploded between them, and every human in the fleet felt it. A surge of connection, of belonging, of love so pure it burned like starfire. Damon gasped as he felt Seraphine's presence in his mind, warm and bright and absolutely certain. Around the fleet, human crews found themselves linked not just to their immediate shipmates, but to every other human fighting. In the battle, they moved as one vast organism, each ship a cell in a body animated by shared purpose and unbreakable love. The coordinated assault that followed was poetry written in fire and light. Every human ship struck at precisely the same moment. Their combined firepower overwhelming the Dominion defenses and striking Korth's dreadnought just as its planet-killer weapon reached full charge. The explosion lit up half the system, and when the light faded, the Iron Tyrant was nothing but expanding. Debris. The remaining Dominion ships, seeing their supposedly invincible leader destroyed, began to flee in panic. As the battle ended and the human fleet regrouped, Damon found himself docking his fighter in the same bay as Seraphine's craft. When their cockpits opened and they saw each other in person for the first time, the universe seemed to hold its breath. She was even more beautiful up close, her warrior's armor doing nothing to hide the feminine curves beneath. But it was her eyes that captured him, ancient and wise, yet warm with something that might have been love. So, she said, removing her helmet to let her fiery hair cascade free, this is what a human hero looks like. Eamon stepped closer, his own flight suit marked with the scars of battle. And this is what a luminary princess looks like when she saves the galaxy. When they kissed, surrounded by the chaos of a hangar bay full of battle-worn fighters, it felt like the most natural thing in the universe. And across the fleet, as other couples found each other in the aftermath of victory, it became clear that this war had awakened something far more powerful than any weapon. Humanity had remembered what they were truly fighting for, not just survival, but the right to love freely among the stars. The news of Korth's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire, but Emperor Tyraxus of the Dominion was not a being who accepted failure. From his throne world of Shadowspire, he marshaled the full might of his empire. 10,000 warships, each one a floating fortress of destruction. This time, there would be no mistakes, no underestimating the humans. Commander Atlas Stone stood on the observation deck of the human flagship Invincible, watching the massive Dominion armada approach through hyperspace. His scarred face remained calm, but those who knew him could see the storm brewing in his dark eyes. Atlas was humanity's finest special forces commander, a man who had walked through hell and emerged stronger. Beside him stood Luna Moonfire, and her presence seemed to calm the very air around them. She was unlike any being in the galaxy, a mystical healer from the ancient ethereal race, her skin seeming to contain the light of distant moons, shifting from pearl white to soft blue. As her emotions flowed, her silver hair moved as if underwater, and her eyes held the depth of eternity itself. "They bring everything they have," Luna observed, her voice like gentle rain. "Tyraxis seeks to end this war with overwhelming force." Atlas nodded grimly. "Then we'll show him that some things can't be destroyed by force alone." He turned to look at her, and the tenderness in his gaze was at odds with his warrior's bearing. "Luna, you don't have to be here. This battle will be unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen." She moved closer, her hand finding his. And where? Their skin touched, soft light bloomed. "Where you go, I go," she said simply. "Your species has shown mine something we thought lost forever. That love is not weakness, but the greatest strength in the universe." Their moment was interrupted by Captain Nova Blaze's voice over the communication system. The fiery redhead commanded the strike cruiser Phoenix Rising, and her ship was already moving into attack formation. "All vessels, this is Nova. Enemy. Fleet detected. Time to show these metalheads what happens when you mess with humanity's family." Across the human fleet, couples prepared for what might be their final battle. In the fighter bays, Damon Cross and Princess Seraphina Starfall performed their pre-flight rituals together, their movements synchronized after weeks of fighting side by side. Their love had grown from attraction to something deeper, something that made them stronger when they were together. "If we don't make it through this," Damon said, checking Seraphine's weapon systems with the care of a lover, "I want you to know that meeting you is the best thing that ever happened to me." Seraphine's golden skin brightened with emotion as she pulled him close. "We will make it through," she said fiercely. "And when we do, I want to see your home world, meet your family, learn everything about what makes humans so incredible." Their kiss was passionate and desperate, two warriors stealing a moment of love before diving into the fires of war. On the bridge of the Harmony, Captain Jackson Rivera and Zephyr Nightwhisper stood hand in hand before the tactical display showing the approaching enemy. Their love had become the stuff of legend throughout the fleet, the human diplomat and the alien ambassador, whose forbidden romance had sparked a galaxy-wide alliance. "The Stellaris Federation has officially declared war on the Dominion," Zephyr reported, her voice carrying new authority. "My people's neutrality is ended. We stand with humanity now and always." Jackson squeezed her hand, marveling at how perfectly. Their fingers interlaced. "And the other races?" "The Luminari follow Princess Seraphine's lead. The Ethereals have joined because of Luna's influence. The Crystal Collective, the Void Singers, even the proud Stellar Dragons. Your capacity for love has inspired them all." Zephyr's eyes shone with pride. "You have done something no empire has ever accomplished. Jackson, you have united the galaxy not through fear or force, but through love." The first wave of Tyraxis' fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a storm of metal and death. But they were met not just by human ships, but by the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. Hundreds of different species, each one touched by humanity's example, each one fighting not for conquest, but for the right to love freely. Emperor Tyraxis himself commanded the battle from his flagship, the Death's Dominion, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest human dreadnought. His voice boomed across all frequencies, carried by technology that could reach every ship in the system. Humans. He roared, his words dripping with contempt. You have corrupted my galaxy with your weakness. Love is a disease, and I am the cure. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. The response came not from Admiral Storm or any military commander, but from Luna Moonfire. The gentle healer stepped forward to the main communication console of the Invincible, and when she spoke, her words carried the power of ancient magic. Emperor Tyraxis, she said, her voice somehow reaching every being in the system. You speak of love as weakness, but you do not understand its true nature. Let us show you. What happened next would be remembered as the miracle of the heart. Nebula. Luna reached out with her mystical abilities, but instead of using them alone, she connected with every couple, every pair of lovers, every family bond represented in the Allied fleet. The power that flowed through her was not her own, but the combined love of millions of beings who had found something worth fighting for. The space around the Allied fleet began to shimmer with golden light. Ships that had taken damage began to heal themselves. Weapons that should have been depleted found new energy. Pilots who were exhausted suddenly felt refreshed and ready for anything. But more than that, the love flowing through the fleet created something unprecedented, a tactical awareness that transcended individual ships or even individual species. Every pilot, every gunner, every commander suddenly knew exactly where they needed to be, exactly what they needed to do. Commander Atlas Stone felt it too, this connection to something greater than himself. Standing beside Luna, he understood finally what humans brought to the galaxy. It wasn't superior technology or unbeatable tactics. It was the ability to form bonds so strong that they could literally reshape reality. The battle that followed was like a dance, choreographed by the cosmos itself. Human ships moved in perfect harmony with their alien allies, each species contributing their unique strengths to a tapestry of cooperation that Tyraxis's rigid military formation couldn't counter. Damon and Seraphina flew their fighters as extensions of each other's will, taking impossible risks because they knew their partner would always be there to cover them. Their love song was written in laser fire and stardust, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Captain Nova Blaze led her Phoenix Rising in a daring assault on the enemy's heavy cruisers, her ship dancing through defensive fire like a flame given form. Her crew, bound together by years of shared hardship and victory, moved with the precision of a single organism. But it was Dr. Phoenix Vale who provided the key to victory. Working frantically in his laboratory ship, he had finally perfected the technology that Zephyr's first amplification had hinted at, a way to turn love itself into a weapon. All ships, he broadcast, his usually calm voice tight with excitement. I'm transmitting the resonance frequency now. When couples synchronize their heartbeats, their weapons will achieve perfect accuracy. When families fight together, their shields will become impenetrable. When friends trust each other completely, their ships will move as one. The effect was immediate and devastating to the Dominion forces. Human ships began firing with accuracy that defied physics, their shots curving around friendly vessels to strike distant targets. Allied vessels merged their defensive fields into barriers that enemy weapons simply couldn't penetrate. Emperor Tyraxis watched his overwhelming advantage crumble with growing disbelief. Impossible, he snarled. Tactical computer, explain their coordination. Unable to compute, came the mechanical response. Enemy forces are operating beyond known parameters. Their behavior suggests emotional harmonization. Love, Tyraxis spat the word like a curse. Fine. If they want to die for their feelings, I'll give them something to really cry about. The Death's Dominion powered up its ultimate weapon, a reality disruptor capable of tearing holes in space itself. But as the massive cannon began to charge, Jackson Rivera made a decision that would echo through history. "All ships," he broadcast. "This is Captain Rivera. Form up on the Harmony. We're going to show Tyraxis what humans really fight for." What followed was the most audacious maneuver in military history. Every human ship in the fleet, along with their alien allies, formed a massive formation around Jackson and Ziphora's vessel. As they moved together, something extraordinary happened. Their combined love created a field of pure energy that surrounded the entire formation. Luna, channeling the power of every bond in the fleet, spoke words that seemed to reshape reality itself. "Love is not weakness, Tyraxis. Love is creation. Love is protection. Love is the force that builds stars and births galaxies." The golden energy surrounding the allied fleet began to pulse in rhythm with the heartbeats of every couple within it. And as it pulsed, it grew stronger, brighter, more beautiful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. When Tyraxis fired his reality disruptor, expecting to tear the allied fleet apart atom by atom, the energy simply ... stopped. The weapon designed to unmake existence itself meant something it couldn't destroy. Love, so pure and strong that it had become a fundamental force of nature. The backlash destroyed the Death's dominion instantly, and Emperor Tyraxis' last words were lost in the explosion that marked the end of his empire. As the surviving Dominion ships fled in panic, the Allied fleet found itself surrounded by something miraculous. The golden energy of their love hadn't dissipated. It had transformed the space around them into something new. Asteroids became gardens. Dead moons bloomed with life. The very fabric of space itself seemed to sing with joy. In the aftermath of victory, as couples throughout the fleet found each other again, the galaxy began to change. The example of human love had inspired a revolution of the heart that spread from system to system. Tyrannical governments fell as their people demanded the right to love freely. Warlike species laid down their arms to build families instead of armies. Damon and Seraphina were married in a ceremony that brought together their two species for the first time in history. Their wedding became a celebration that lasted for days, with beings from across the galaxy coming to honor the love that had helped save them all. Jackson and Zephyra established the first interspecies diplomatic corps, dedicated to spreading the message that love knew no boundaries of species or star system. Their diplomatic missions became legends, showing that any conflict could be resolved when approached with open hearts. Commander Atlas Stone and Luna Moonfire founded the Galactic Healing Corps, using the power of love to mend not just bodies, but entire worlds scarred by centuries of war. Wherever they went, barren planets bloomed and broken societies found wholeness. Again, and Captain Nova Blaze? She took her Phoenix Rising to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, carrying the message of human love to civilizations that had never known peace. Her ship became a symbol of hope, proof that even the darkest corners of space could be illuminated by the light of love. Years later, when historians tried to explain how humanity had changed the galaxy, they would point to technology, to tactics, to the unique human ability to form alliances. But those who had been there, who had felt the golden energy that transformed space itself, knew the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been their ships or their weapons. It was their infinite capacity to love, not just their own species, but any being willing to open their heart to connection. And in teaching the galaxy how to love, humans had accomplished something no empire ever could. They had made the universe itself a better place. In the end, the ancient warning had been proven true, but not in the way anyone expected. The galaxy should never have underestimated humanity, not because they were dangerous in war, but because they were irresistible in love. And love, as it turned out, was the most powerful force in the universe.